And today we look at the game in the United States from the angle of women who play the game, who coach it, who officiate it. Katey Stone is the head coach of the U.S. women's national and Olympic teams, and also a head coach at Harvard. And good morning, Katey.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, good to have you here on the program. Congratulations. I know it was a consolation game against BU, but a 3-0 win nonetheless for Harvard.
You know, it was a big game. You know, the Beanpot's got 4 great teams in it now, and so there really isn't a consolation game. Every game's a big deal.
Let's talk a little bit about the women's game and just how much it has grown over your involvement in it and the time that you've been with USA Hockey.
Oh, it's grown exponentially. Just the number of young women playing and the talent and level, the commitment, the preparation. I mean, just about in every category the game has grown, and the coaching and the resources that programs, whether they be club programs or college programs, and certainly then international have put into women's hockey. It's significant. So from start to finish, I mean, there were some great players back when I started 19 years ago at Harvard and with USA Hockey, certainly, but there are just the depth of the game now is tremendous.
When certain legislators in the states talk about repealing Title IX, has women's sports in U.S. colleges and universities, is it entrenched enough that they don't need that protection, or are we still not that advanced?
I think we do need that protection. I think it's a little bit different. I'd like to see Title IX with an addendum B. I think that, they talk about the numbers of athletes and so forth, and it's got to speak to some resources that are allocated for both men's and women's sports and coaching and just making sure that you have everything you need to be successful. If your school's going to have a program, you want to make sure that you're armed with everything you need to be successful. So, and I think that sometimes that's where I think the athletes are the female athletes aren't necessarily directly affected or feel that, but it happens with programmatically. And we want to keep good coaches in the game. We've got to make sure we compensate them accordingly and give them all the program resources they need to be successful.
When it comes to the international game, no secret that Canada and the United States have been above and beyond the two best teams for many, many, many years. Give folks out there who may not follow the women's game internationally an idea of how other nations and other federations may start catching up here and how they're doing. Because there have been all kinds of attempts, whether it be ambassadors, coaching symposiums and sharing of coaching resources to bring some of these teams and their level of competition up a little bit. How has that been going?
I think that's been going very well. It's a great step in the right direction, and certainly there are a lot of people that are eager to help these other countries get up to speed. It takes time because as they're getting better, so are the U.S. and Canada, just in resources and in competitive in the competition among themselves. I mean, the players are just better. The level is better. Now, I was joking with someone, and it's somewhat of a joke, and it's somewhat not. That if college hockey, I think, is one of the best development grounds for women's hockey, no question. And they get the coaching, they get the strength and conditioning program. They're on the ice 5-6 days a week, and then they go back and play on their national teams. Right there, they're better than they were beforehand. So, trying to provide more opportunities for international players, and I think. When I talk about international players, I don't mean Canadians, and I don't mean that I'm not trying to be mean. It's just that if we want to grow the game, maybe this U.S. college hockey needs to give more scholarships to international players so that we can bring them over here and help them, coach them, train them, and then they go back, and then there's a greater nucleus of players on that national team that can then catapult their program to a different level.
I think that's a great idea, especially in light of yesterday when wrestling was dropped from the Olympics. So we're talking the real wrestling, not the fake stuff. And yes, it's fake.
Right.
And that created waves. And all the time, the Olympics, that's how it goes. They change sports in and out. There's some who are advocating dropping women's hockey, and people in favor of women's hockey, and I'm one of them, say, give it time. Men's hockey was the same way back in the 20s. Canada would win 28-0 or whatever, and Britain would win with Canadians, and the States would be up there, but that would be it. It takes time, and all you are doing in the States and in Canada and throughout other parts like Sweden, you're laying the groundwork, and it's still relatively fresh, isn't it?
It is, definitely. And what's interesting is that, this college hockey system in Canada is not at the level that they would like it to be to really have it be the training ground for their national team. The U.S. college hockey system is. And that's great, and it's great for our game. However, we're only really, truly, for the most part, serving two countries right now. And if we are interested in growing the game and maintaining, being able to continue to have women's hockey in the Olympics, we're going to have to make some pretty hard decisions, I think. And it seems like such an out-of-the-box thought. And again, I work at an Ivy League school that doesn't offer scholarships, so we're looking at anyone and anywhere we can find players to come play for Harvard. But that, if we could agree to offer some more scholarships to international players outside of North America, I think we will see growth in the game and have an opportunity for some of these kids not only to get a great education, but also to go back to their national teams with a lot more tools to help them on an international stage.
This is Hockey This Morning on NHL Network Radio on Sirius XM. Katey Stone, head coach of the U.S. Women's National and Olympic Team, with us, also the head coach at Harvard. It's Mike and Mick on Hockey This Morning. Katey, an email here from Mike in Virginia who asks how long you feel girls should play on co-ed teams before switching to all-girl teams.
That's interesting. I might not make any friends on this answer either, but I grew up playing boys hockey. I did it until I went to high school. I think in certain places in the country where you don't have a strong girls team to play on and you have an opportunity to continue to play with the boys, I say play with the boys until there's a risk of being injured, where the size differential is just too great. And particularly, and if you're a goaltender, I think you can play boys hockey for a long time, and it's great for you. It just depends on the situation and what else is provided for you where you live. And some places have fantastic girls club programs or high school programs, and that's awesome. But if not, I say stick with your boys team as long as you can before it becomes a health risk.
Yeah, I agreed. About coaching, moving into coaching, and yourself, of course, 300 wins and women's college hockey and all the things you've accomplished. Do you encourage that of some of your players? Can you tell which ones, just like in men's hockey, may have the aptitude and the drive and the will to be coaches? Because I've always thought early on we would see men behind the benches, and I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but to grow the game properly, you want to have women in every aspect of the game.
That would certainly be fantastic. I mean, I believe there is something to be said for competent women coaching young women. And, it depends. I think I used an example of Angela Ruggiero. I never imagined at the time when she was playing that she would be a great coach. But she has the patience and certainly the knowledge, and she runs her own hockey camps. And, I don't imagine that that's what she's going to do for her career, but she's someone that has been fantastic at coaching at camps and development situations. So you just never know. I think, number one, you've got to have the willingness to want to learn all the time and be a good listener. Number two, you've got to have some patience because things don't happen overnight. And if you want to be, have a sustained level of excellence for a long time, you've got to work at it and be confident in what you're trying to teach.
When you look at the calendar, I mean, a year away now, even less than a year away from Sochi, and they're certainly going to continue the talks between the NHL and the IIHF to see if NHL players are going to make that jump. But the women's game is set. The women's teams continue to prepare. Tell us a little bit about the United States entry, and you expect any surprises, any names that we haven't heard before making their way onto that team?
Well, I imagine there might be a few surprises, and I certainly hope that there are, for the sake of the game, for the sake of the U.S. team. I think that, as I said, every year players are better. They're better conditioned, they're better trained, better skilled, and they think the game sometimes a little bit faster than others. And so I certainly hope that there are some surprises and some new names. I mean, for everyone, that should be the way it is. It's been a pretty consistent process of vetting players for the past 3 years since August 2010 when I took over. And I'd like to think that we haven't left any stone unturned. I don't think we've missed anyone, and certainly if we've given people opportunities to come back and prove themselves again. And so at the end of the day, I know that we'll all feel really good about the players that are headed to Sochi, and hopefully we've got the right ones to get the job done.
And before that happens, you've got the Women's World Championship in Ottawa in early April. We wish you all the best with that and with the rest of your season at Harvard as well. Katey, thanks for being here today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you very much.
Katey Stone, head coach of the U.S. women's national and Olympic teams, and also at Harvard. 3-0 win over BU in the consolation game at the Beanpot tournament yesterday. Northeastern winning that tournament on the women's side, Boston College winning it on the men's side. And if you're interested in the women's ice hockey world championship, 2013 edition happens in Ottawa at Scotiabank Place between April 2nd and April 9th. It's Hockey This Morning, NHL Network Radio.